kind of the amount of players per position, do you have any issues with how many they picked?
So they didn't do a first and a second team, which I think is a mistake, because being a first team all-decade person has been like damn near equivalent to almost automatically getting into the Hall of Fame, which kind of makes sense when you think about it, that this is the Hall of Fame voters that put this list out. So that makes sense, right? Like, we're all kind of shocked that it's Drew Pearson, the only member of the first all-decade team in the 70s that isn't in the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Right.
So I think not splitting it between first and second team is a mistake. And the idea that in the most pass-happy era of football, the idea that in the era of football where since 2013, 11 personnel has been used offensively over 50% of the snaps. So 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. The idea that you would have the same number of running backs and receivers on the team,
right,
I think is incorrect. Like, even if you want to give yourself more than 2 running backs, like, that's probably means that you should reserve the flex to be the 3rd running back. But you should probably have. So I like the way Pro Football Focus structured their team much better with 3 receivers, and they did a first and a second team. So they did 3 first-team receivers, 3 second-team receivers, and they only did 2 running backs. And then they have a flex, which I think they gave to Larry and Fitz, or Larry and Greg Olsen, I think, were their flexes. But anyway, I like that better. I think it's more representative. And then defensively, you were talking about Joe Hayden potentially being snubbed. How, again, so 11 personnel has been the most used offensive personnel grouping. And kind of intuitively, like, you put another defensive back on the field to match the 3 receivers, like, you're going to end up in a lot of nickel defensively in this decade. So the team, the all-decade team, should probably represent that and have more than 4 corners, one of which has to be snuck in there as an extra defensive back.
Right.
Instead of just they should probably have 3 corners on the first team, 3 corners and 6 corners, and then 2 more safeties. And the linebackers, man, the difference between the defensive end and an outside linebacker nowadays is not huge. Like, the outside linebackers, again, because they're in nickel, like, edge defenders, instead of trying to differentiate between the difference between Von Miller and J.J. Watt when they effectively do. Now, J.J. moves up and down the line. He plays inside as well sometimes. But for the most part, like, they have the same job, right? Occasionally, Von Miller will step into coverage. But for the most part, if you're in nickel, your outside linebacker has become essentially your defensive edge. The defensive end, the difference is, the technique they use, whether they stand up, whether they put 3 in the ground, a hand on the ground or whatever. But no, so I think structure-wise, I think they should have. I think they could have structured it better, and I think it would have represented the decade of football better. Right?
Keep up with the times, NFL. Come on.
And then you know what?
This on Twitter.
And then probably I don't put Hopkins over Fitzgerald because you have another slot, and I can just slide Hopkins. There we go. And Gore doesn't make it, and so I can't put Bell over Gore if Gore doesn't make it because you don't have four running backs.
The mic there. If you like the video, hit the
like
like
button. Have fun watching the draft.
Yeah, if you dislike the video, comment on it and